How's it going, guys and girls? Hope you guys had a great week. So I'm back today with another video. This is the first of a continued series called What Do We Know So Far? So every month I'm going to showcase a particular game, information on a game coming out in 2018. Now, it might be coming out soon, it might be coming out further on down the year, but we're going to start today with Kingdom Come Deliverance. So this is everything that we know so far about Kingdom Come Deliverance. This game is a first-person action RPG game. It is a purely single-player experience, so there'll be no multiplayer in it, and it is developed by Warhorse Studios and published by Deep Silver. The game itself actually began with a Kickstarter back in 2014. Warhorse Studios basically put out a request for support from fans interested in this game, and they hoped to raise £300,000 and actually raised 1.1 million. The game is set to be released on February the 13th, and it will be available on PS4, Xbox One, and also on PC. So the game is grounded in realism. Think Skyrim, but without the magic. It is set in the medieval kingdom of Bohemia, an imperial state of the Holy Roman Empire. The game will actually focus on historically accurate events, and while the main character and his story will be purely fictional, it will be based in historical accuracy. So the events, the battles, the bigger world events actually happened in history, and many of the characters and NPCs were also real people as well, with their own stories, which is really interesting. It is also set in a huge open world environment. Now, the game begins in 1403, and the basic premise of the story is the old king has died and his heir lacks the power to secure his throne. The new king's brother seizes the opportunity to kidnap the king and also to pillage his lands, seeking to strengthen his own power and advancement. Now, the kings mentioned in the game are actually historical figures, focusing around Charles IV, Wenceslaus IV, and Sigismund as well. The game follows the story of the son of a blacksmith by the name of Henry, whose family has been killed by the invading army. Henry seeks revenge and will ultimately, throughout the game, strive to restore the rightful ruler to the throne and order to the land, while gaining vengeance for the death of his family as well. There is no character creation here like most Western RPGs. Think more The Witcher 3. So instead of creating your own character, you have a very set character and you will follow his story and his experiences. And I like that. And the reason that Warhorse Studios have done this is that they basically say they want a game that's about immersion and storytelling. And that's the most important thing for them. And I have absolutely no problem with that whatsoever. So let's talk about the gameplay elements for this game, because that is the most interesting. Now, of course, this is an RPG, so there are going to be quite a lot of RPG elements to the game. There are going to be no classes. There are no classes in the game, so you're not going to be picking a warrior or a thief or an assassin or anything like that. But you can actually customize your skills to take on the different roles of warrior, bard, or thief, and you can actually adapt your play style and your weapons throughout the game. So you might choose to play a particular section in a stealthy-like manner as a thief, and in another case you might be going through huge battles and sieges, and of course playing more in a sort of warrior style of gameplay. Your abilities and stats will actually grow depending on what the player does and also says through branching dialogue options. So there's going to be a lot of dialogue, a lot of questioning NPCs and discovering more about the world and the events through talking. So it's not just going to be action and fights and combat. There's going to be quite a lot in there for RPG fans. Now, conversations are actually time limited and will have an effect on the players' relationships with other characters and NPCs. I don't know how I feel about it being time limited. I don't know whether that means there's going to be a timer and you have to pick a particular decision in a limited time. I'm never generally a fan of those kinds of conversations, because when it comes to RPGs, I like to take my time and when I'm choosing my decisions, and it usually takes me quite a while to decide what answers I want to give, or what answers feel honest for me. But either way, I guess we'll find out. Now, all these conversations will affect your reputation and your reputation in the world, and how people react to you and how they also view you. And your reputation will be based on your choices, and it will have very real consequences in the world as well. Let's talk about the weapons, clothing, and items in the game. Clothing is a big part of the game. There are actually 16 item slots for your character. And clothing can actually be layered to provide different levels of protection. So obviously you'll wear undergarments, and then you can wear sort of chainmail and armor on top. These types of clothing will provide different levels of protection against different kinds of weapons. Clothing will also progressively get more worn and dirty and bloodied with use, and it will actually affect your character's appearance. Now, whether or not that affects how people react or respond to you, that's quite interesting. So obviously if you move up in ranks, perhaps in the army, and become like a captain or whatever, if you don't maintain your armor, maybe you will lose some respect or some authority or reputation. So it'll be quite interesting to see how that actually plays out in the game. The most interesting part of this for me is you can actually change your clothing and loot clothing from enemies, and you can use this to create disguises and stealth opportunities. So we saw some footage and some gameplay where you had to infiltrate an enemy camp to do sort of recon before an attack or a siege, and there are different ways that you could do it. You could go in under the cover of night and the rain and sneak in that way, but you could also take out a scout, dress in his clothing, and then basically infiltrate it and sneak in a very sort of Hitman style gameplay. I think there's a part as well I heard where you basically can infiltrate a monastery and dress and act as a monk to look for a traitor or a spy. So that's really interesting, and I love those little touches there, and I'm really looking forward to sort of experimenting with that. Now, of course, there are going to be lots of weapons. There are varied weapons in here, so you'll be able to use swords, knives, axes, hammers, bows. Equipment and weapons will degrade over time as well with use, and will require regularly being repaired. Now, whether you'll have to actually go to a blacksmith to do this, or whether you'll carry a repair kit with you, I suppose you're the son of a blacksmith, so I would think you'd be able to repair your own gear, but it'll be interested to see how that actually works in game and affects it. Horses will also feature heavily in the game, but they are designed to act on their own, and we are told that their AI is pretty good and will move and jump to avoid small obstacles and danger. You will also be able to fight from horseback and use your horse to carry items if you need additional inventory space. Now, horses can also level up throughout the game as well, and they will also come with their own slots for armor and attachments, and I think there are 5 slots for each horse. An interesting feature as well is the game will also feature a needs system where players will need to sleep and eat in order to stay healthy. There is also alchemy and potion crafting in the game as well, so you'll be able to craft poisons and probably health potions and things like that. Of course, it's not potions in the sense of magic, but there is definitely some form of crafting and alchemy in the game. Foodstuffs and other perishable items will also spoil over time, which is very interesting, and it would be curious to see how, if that affects your health or smell or Lord knows what. So let's talk about the quests and NPCs. The storyline will feature huge castle sieges and large battles, which I'm really looking forward to. NPCs will also have their own daily routine and will actually not wait for the player. So side missions and quests are time sensitive, and the NPCs will carry out certain missions and certain quests with or without you. So that will put a lot of pressure on gamers, you know, particularly those gamers like Dante, for example, that take ages in RPGs and like to look at everything and investigate everything. But actually, if you do that, you might miss out on an opportunity. And if you're late to a quest or turn up to a quest late as well, that will also affect how people react or respond to you. You know, if you're supposed to meet somebody or follow somebody to a particular point and you fail to do so, then you're going to lose a little bit of reputation there. So that's interesting that there are a lot of quests that can be missed and can also change how the game diverges, and that relates a lot to replay value for it as well, which is quite cool. NPCs will also report on crimes to authorities if you commit a crime, and that will have very real consequences in the game. So you could be fined, you could spend time in jail, you could even be subjected to the stocks or even torture, depending on how extreme the crime is. The most interesting aspect of the game as well for me is the look of the combat. It's not like anything that we've really seen. It does remind me a little bit of For Honor in the style. So of course it's first person, and you have basically kind of directional points, like a little sort of diagonal directional points where you can hit different angles. I think there are 5 points around. It's not like Skyrim where it's kind of hack and slash sort of, where you just sort of slash at your opponent willy-nilly. The combat is a lot more tactical, so you will have to time your moves. There are particular times that you need to have for sort of blocking attacks and parrying, and if you do a perfect block or a perfect counter, that obviously will stun your opponent and leave them open. It also is affected by what kinds of weapons you're using, as well as what kind of armor your opponent is also wearing. So if they're not wearing a helmet, then you obviously want to go for the head, and that might lead to, you know, an instant kill move. If they're wearing heavier armor as well, particular weapons are not going to be as effective as well. So a sword might not be as effective against, say, chainmail and armor plates. As well, the kind of armor you wear will also affect your fighting and combat as well. So, for example, I think they showed one bit where you're wearing like an actual helmet with a visor, and because you're wearing a sort of big hulking armor, it makes you slower, but also it limits your visibility, so you can only see out of the visor, which does make it more challenging. So the combat looks very skills based and tactical based, and I love that. It's basically designed to accurately recreate medieval European fencing at that time, and the developers at Warhorse Studios have employed a full-time historian to accurately recreate the world and the Kingdom of Bohemia, and it looks beautiful, it looks stunning. And also they've employed actual sort of experts on fencing at that time as well to recreate the combat. So it looks really interesting. Now obviously if you don't like the combat, you can choose to complete quests in multiple ways, and that's what I really like about the RPG elements of this game, is that there is no set linear way to complete quests. You basically go to an area and you can complete it in any way that you want. So, you know, if you wanted to talk to NPCs to get intel, you could do that. If you want to go through a quest being purely stealthy, you can do that. If you want to go in and attack them straight on, you can do that as well. So it sounds really interesting. Now, in terms of the size of the game, Richard Lackness, the community manager, has confirmed that the game will have over 50 hours worth of gameplay, and that there are plans to release DLC content and extra content later down the road. Now there is no mention of a season pass at the moment, so obviously that remains to be seen. But I have to say, Kingdom Come Deliverance was not something really on my radar until kind of E3, and most recently where I was sort of watching some gameplay on it, and it looks really interesting. I am a huge RPG nut, as you all know. RPGs are probably my favorite genre, and also I'm also a historical geek week as well. So I'm really excited to be set in 15th century medieval Europe. There aren't that many games recently that have been set in that, and a lot of RPGs have been very fantasy based. So I'm really interested to play an RPG that's set in sort of a realistic historical period, and I'm really looking forward to playing that. And Henry's story sounds really interesting. So that is everything that we know so far about Kingdom Come Deliverance. Let me know what you guys think about this game in the comment section below. Let me know if you guys are planning to play it or pick it up. Anyway, I hope you guys found this video interesting. If you did find it interesting and informative, please hit the like button as always to show your support. So please, in the comment section below, put down what game you would like me to showcase in my next What Do We Know So Far video, and I'll obviously take your suggestions and obviously record those. But anyway, I hope you guys are having a great week. Take care, and as always, happy gaming. Bye guys.